All right, thanks again for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to share the 10 tips for goat grazing entrepreneurs. My name's Aaron Steele. I am one of the founders and co-owners of Goats on the Go. We are a targeted grazing service that launched in Ames, Iowa in 2012. Ever since then, we have been really pleased with the demand for our goat grazing service, the demand that we see for other great goat grazing services all across the country. And almost since the very moment that we launched Goats on the Go, we started getting calls from folks all across the country who wanted to start a goat grazing operation like ours. And that led us to launch our network of national goat grazing affiliates. So goat grazing affiliates are independently owned and operated companies that all operate under the Goats on the Go brand. So together, at the moment, 24 different tiny little companies operate together to present the professional appearance and of a slightly larger company, and also share resources and support. So we're really excited about the direction of our affiliate network, and there'll be lots of opportunities for you to learn more about that tonight as we go along. We started, as I mentioned, Goats on the Go back in 2012. When I say we, I mean my family there on my left, on the left of this screen, and the Steenhook family on the right. We're just two families that each had kind of a hobby scale farm, and we wanted to move beyond that hobby scale and at the same time do something that that made us feel good about the type of food we were producing and how we were producing it. We shared a conservation ethic and a certain way of doing things from an agricultural perspective that just channeled really nicely into the Goats on the Go target operation. I want to point out here that, you know, if you don't get all of your questions answered tonight and you think of some more, fire those off to me in an email. I'd love to get back to you, or just pick up the phone and call us anytime. We'd love to answer your questions. So I mentioned targeted grazing already, and what is targeted grazing? I'm guessing you know something about that since you're tuning in tonight, but essentially targeted grazing is the use of livestock to achieve very particular, very well-defined landscape and vegetation goals. So that means we are getting paid to eat the vegetation with our goats that our customers want less of. And important in that definition of what targeted grazing is that we have specific goals in mind, and we're using livestock as a tool to achieve those goals. This is not just livestock grazing in the purely agricultural sense or the conventional farm sense of let's just put animals out there and eat until the food is gone. We have particular goals in mind to meet our customers' needs using goats as a tool. So now that we have that out of the way, let's start with some tips. These tips are in no particular order. It's what the title of this webinar promised. So let's dig in a little bit here. So number 10 is pay yourself. And by that, I mean pay yourself a wage. This is me doing some of the hard labor that goes along with a goat grazing operation. I like to say that our company and our business comes with short bouts of very difficult labor. It's not miserable all day long every day, but every few days we have a couple of rough hours, and we are out in 95-degree heat. We're getting sunburn, we're getting poison ivy, we're exposed to ticks and bugs, and we're dragging this infernal portable electric fencing through the woods, and it's hooking on everything. And that can be a real challenge. It's really satisfying, the work that we do, but it deserves to be paid for. And if I wasn't the one out here sweating on this particular day, I would be paying somebody else to do this work. I'm out there because at some level I kind of enjoy this, but I could hire a college student or a high school student for, I don't know, $10 an hour, $15 an hour, $20 an hour. So if I do the labor, it's not like I got away with something. I didn't get something for free. There is still a cost to my time. So I better be paying myself at least what I'd have to pay that high school or college kid to do this hard work out there in the field. That's really important when it comes to setting the price for a goat grazing service. You really cannot set that price until you know what all of your base expenses are. And paying yourself a wage is one of those base expenses. You don't get to just forget about it because you're the one doing the work. So that's my first tip to anybody who's out there tonight who's thinking about starting a goat grazing operation or is perhaps already operating one. Make sure you're paying yourself. The 9 tip, be a boundary spanner. This is a bit of a catchphrase. It's something I picked up in college and it's kind of always stuck with me. And a boundary spanner is somebody who doesn't just get siloed into their particular role. Just learn the things that are pertinent to the business at hand at any given moment. Somebody who doesn't take too seriously their title or their college degree or whatever, and they think beyond all of those categories. Okay, so it's in terms of our business as a goat grazing operation, it's not good enough just to know goats. It's not good enough just to be a goat farmer. In order to run a successful goat grazing operation, you have to be able to empathize with and know and understand people who are kind of outside of your realm. And not every farmer or goat producer is able to do that. Here's a great example. These are kids from a local elementary school who came to one of our projects, our goat grazing projects at a local park. This local park was situated right on the shores of a lake. So we had to get beyond the boundaries of our own position as goat producers, and we had to be able to relate to these kids. Not only that, but we had to be able to relate to their teacher, their science teacher there in the background. Not only that, but this was a local park, as I mentioned. So we had to be able to relate with the local government officials. We had to understand what their concerns were. We had to be able to put ourselves in their shoes. And it goes even further because this lake is managed by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, and they have specific conservation concerns. So we have to know a little bit about where they're coming from and what their concerns are and what their goals are. So we just have to be able to think beyond how do we raise goats and what's the cheapest way to provide feed for our goats. If that's all we're doing, we're a good goat operator, but we're perhaps not a good goat grazing company operator. Number 8, use technology. I am amazed at the free software that is available out there in the world. And we are typically, as goat grazing operations, we are very small companies without a lot of startup cash. We have to stretch our dollars as best we can. And one of the ways that actually is not terribly difficult is in the use of free online applications, free software online. For example, Wave is free accounting software, free bookkeeping software. I am amazed at how good it is for something that's free and relatively cheap. It's like any of these services out there that they offer you a certain number of features or some basic functionality for free, and then they start charging you for additional features and additional functionality. But I am amazed with Wave how much you get for free, especially if you're just going to be a small business and perhaps not have any direct employees for a while, and so therefore not have to do payroll. Wave can meet a lot of your needs for a bookkeeping service. Zapier is another great example. Bear with me one second here. Zapier is a service that ties some of these applications together with other applications. So we can use Zapier, for example, to whenever I get an email from a potential customer, it can automatically be uploaded into Trello, which I'm going to talk about next. Or it can be automatically send some information from that email I received to Evernote. It's an amazing functionality. It's a little nerdy. It takes a little understanding of some technology basics, some software basics, but most people can work through it and the end result is really worthwhile. Trello is a piece of software that I use to help track leads and potential customers. I move them from one Trello list into another as we progress through the sales cycle. So when I get an initial lead, I create essentially a index card, a digital index card in the opening list for Trello, the list of new potential clients. And once I have a phone call with that customer, I pick up that index card digitally and slide it into the next list, which says first phone call made or first contact made. And then I move it into the next list when I've prepared an estimate for that customer. And we track all the way through using Trello, and I never use a pencil mark on a single piece of paper. Evernote is also a great way to just keep track of all sorts of things. You can use it for notes about clients. You can use it for notes about projects. You can make a little note and on your phone and then attach a picture to it and store that away in a neat, organized way. I like to use it for receipts because it's got an amazing search function. I can take a picture of a receipt and it will use optical character recognition to understand what those printed letters actually meant. And it's easy to go back and find a receipt, maybe even from years ago, just by perhaps punching in the total of that transaction. And Evernote's amazing at going back and finding those. So just a few examples. I mentioned our affiliate network earlier, and we get together with our affiliates every year at a national training and conference. And we talk about this sort of information. This is a slide directly from our affiliate training. So we talk about these kinds of tools and even more to equip our affiliates to go out and not just do the GOAT part of this business, but to do the back end part of this business as well, which is just as critical. All right, number 7, use the right equipment. Again, when we get our affiliates together at our national training, we go into depth about the exact item numbers of these fences that you see, the exact equipment you want to order from which particular company. And so that's really important because making a few mistakes on the equipment you purchase can be really expensive. And we made a bunch of those mistakes when we launched. And thank goodness we realized our mistakes quickly before we invested too much. And our affiliates don't have to make those mistakes again. Here's an example of the right kind of equipment. So people often ask us, how do you provide water to these project sites? And it's really pretty simple. I mean, we'll use on-site water if we can, perhaps from building at a farm or from a home, the hose spigot outside of a house. We'll work with the client on that to figure out what's going to work best. But if we can't do that sort of thing, we'll just back up with a barrel full of water. We'll use a couple of these shallow Rubbermaid water tanks that are 50 gallons each. And maybe the best tip I can give you as far as equipment seems like the silliest thing in the world, but don't use a hose. If you can get within 5-6 feet of your water tanks with your bulk water, use a length of PVC pipe, a large diameter PVC pipe. The water just flows so much more quickly right out of that pipe than it would out of a garden hose. And we get our tanks filled up a lot faster that way. It seems silly, seems like a tiny little thing, but when you're on a project and the bugs are biting and the sun is beating down and you want to get out of there, this is really helpful. All right, manage risk. So when most people talk about risk management, we're talking about insurance. And really insurance is an important part of this that I think a lot of goat grazing startups aren't taking seriously. If we're not going out to the public saying we have accounted for the risk involved with us providing this business to you, and here's how we're doing that, then we're just not taking this business seriously. And we already have an industry that has the potential to be viewed as kind of gimmicky or flaky. And so one of the ways we can really work hard at our image in the goat grazing industry is to make sure that we're doing it professionally and to come with risk management solutions, namely insurance. And I'm not just talking about your farm insurance. We need insurance that covers specifically the additional risk of taking goats and electric fence to other people's properties and providing a service that we're going to be paid for. So that's probably the number one key to managing risk. The second thing is to just be really good at what we do. Set up our fence correctly. Take measures to be safe. In the background here, you see that we have hired a commercial hauler. I wish I could say that's my trailer. I'm actually pretty jealous of it. But when we do a really large project, say 220, 240 goats, and we're going to go do a 40-acre project and try to do an acre a day, we don't mess around with hauling those goats ourselves. They're our goats, we own them, but we're goat farmers and we're goat grazing business operators. We're not truck drivers. And so if we can hand that risk off to a commercial operator, it just makes our job a lot easier. Number 5, be findable online. You know, one of the great things about the environment we're in these days is that anybody can access online resources and a way to communicate to the world so easily. But what comes with that ease is everybody doing it. And that creates a lot of noise out there online with websites and social media. There's a lot of people yelling and screaming, trying to get your attention. So it can be more of a trick than you think to actually get that website of yours seen or get those social media posts of yours seen. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're 24 small companies acting together like one in our affiliate network. That makes it a lot easier for us. So we build a professional website, but it doesn't just sit there and die on the vine. It gets actual traffic, much more traffic than maybe we even deserve, because we don't just have the customers or potential customers for one goat grazing operation in Ames, Iowa coming to our website. We have potential customers from all over the country coming to our website looking for their local affiliate. What that means is we get more traffic. And what that means is with more traffic comes a better ranking in Google search results. So we keep driving upward in the search results, meaning that we end up on the first page of search results in lots of different search terms that somebody might look for in order to find a local goat grazing operation. We also keep our site updated regularly. We have new information about each of our affiliates. Our affiliate network is growing, so we're constantly adding people to that directory. We have a blog that we are posting on regularly. That contributes to how high someone comes up in the search results as well. So together, we are very findable online, not to mention the fact that our social media accounts are well followed. We've been investing in them since 2012. So together, our affiliate network is just much more easily found than it would be outside of the network if we were operating alone. So I'm afraid that's not, well, I did give you some tips there about how to improve your presence online. And so I'd encourage you to do those sorts of things. And maybe the biggest tip about being findable online is being consistent in posting new information, whether that's on social media or whether that is on your website. Pay yourself. This looks like a repeat. It's not. The first tip about pay yourself was regarding a wage for the work you do on site. But now let's talk about paying yourself a profit. This kind of goes back to what price we're going to charge for a goat grazing service. We really don't know what that price should be until we've accounted for all of our costs. So our wage to be out there doing that sweaty work, that was part of the cost. There are lots of other costs we need to account for. And once all those costs are accounted for and they're subtracted from that check we get from a customer, that's profit. Okay? So we should pay ourselves that profit. That's what we're aiming for in owning our own business. If we just wanted to create a job for ourselves, there are lots of ways to get a job. If you just want to work with goats and do that sweaty work setting up the fence, you can go to work for another goat grazing service. But if you want profit, you need to make sure to price your service so that you can honestly account for all of your expenses, including your wage, and still have money left over. That's what an entrepreneur does. That's what a business owner does. They seek profit. And we are providing a valuable service as a goat grazing operation, so we deserve to be rewarded for that as well. Account for all of your costs. Okay, we talked about our wage and how that's a significant cost we need to account for. But one of the ways that goat grazing operations sometimes don't account for all of their costs is that they borrow, apparently for free, from some other enterprise, usually a farm. So maybe we have a small hobby farm. Maybe our kids are showing some goats at 4-H or some pigs at 4-H. So we have a livestock trailer. We have a truck to pull it with. We have a few other farm resources, and we borrow those all the time for our goat grazing operation, but we don't assign a value to that, okay? So just imagine if you're a city dweller and you decide, I want to open a goat grazing operation tomorrow. You don't have a truck, you don't have a trailer, you don't have fence posts, you don't have water tanks laying around. You need to access all of those assets one way or the other. The only way to do that is to either buy them or lease them from somebody else. And until we've paid to buy them or lease them, we haven't accounted for all of the costs in our goat grazing operation. So we really encourage the goat grazing startups to separate those enterprises. So it's fine to use the resources, the truck and the trailer and the water tanks and so on from the farm that we already have, but just pay yourself for those resources. Actually write yourself a check for driving the goats around. Somebody sat in that driver's seat and towed a trailer with a big truck. That's a skill that deserves to be rewarded. So whatever operation provides those assets, make sure that your goat grazing operation actually pays for them. If we don't, we're going to get the wrong read on what our price should be for our service. We're going to think that we can provide our service much more cheaply than we actually can. And number 2, know your stuff. Be an expert. Again, back to that boundary spanner slide, it's not enough to just be a good goat person or a good goat farmer. We got to know some stuff that is going to help us out on these goat grazing projects. So to the left here, this is actually directly from our affiliate trainings presentation. If the same length of fence is used, which fence configuration encloses the greatest land area? In other words, if I have 4 lengths of fence, how do I make the biggest paddock possible? And some of you are scoffing out there right now. This is so easy, right? But I tell you, I was fooled by this when we first got started. I thought, we've got 4 fences. It doesn't really matter how you set it up. As long as I stretch them all tight, I am making maximum use of those 4 fences. Some of you may be saying it's a square. Some may be saying it's a circle. Well, the truth is it is a circle. Okay, so that's the most efficient way to enclose the most land with 4 fences, 4 lengths of portable electric fence. Unfortunately, we don't get to use circles very much on our projects. This is important because we don't want to have to use more assets than we need to provide our service. So we need to know how much area is inside of a paddock that we create with a certain number of fences, and we want to do it as efficiently as possible. If you think about setting up a circular paddock and then creating another circular paddock next to it, you can see that those circles are barely touching at one point, and we're leaving out a lot of land. So in order to use circles and capture all of the land that we have to graze, we start having to overlap circles, and then we lose efficiency. So truth be told, we end up doing a lot of rectangles in our business, as close to a square as we can get, but the topography and terrain and vegetation doesn't typically allow you to set up a perfect square. So it's usually some form of a triangle, or pardon me, some form of a rectangle. And then here on the right, this is, maybe some of you have recognized it already, there's kind of a telltale sign in this picture of what kind of vegetation this is. That orangey bark, interior of the bark tells me that's buckthorn. Buckthorn is a particularly problematic invasive species here in the Midwest, especially in the north parts of the Midwest. So we get called to deal with buckthorn quite frequently. We need to know what it is and be able to identify it. Well, that seems simple, but we also need to know, going back to being that boundary spanner, why buckthorn is a problem for us. Is it a problem because it's an invasive species, or is it a problem just because it's kind of annoying? What if this customer really cares about native species versus invasive species, but this customer just thinks it's a nuisance? How do we treat those customers different? So we need to know what their problem is and know what their goals are, and know how we can deliver a solution to that problem in a way that meets our customers where they are. And we're down to our last tip tonight. I would really recommend that you read these two books. If you're going to go into small business at all, I'd recommend that you read The Dip by Seth Godin. I'm not going to explain it very deeply, but it says right there in the subtitle, it teaches you when to quit and when to stick. That's a really amazing book. You can listen to it in an hour on a drive sometime if you get the audio version. And it'll be one of the best hours you spend. And then on the right there, Raising Meat Goats in a Commercial Operation by Greg Christensen. Greg has been a role model and friend for me in the meat goat industry, in the meat goat business. He doesn't talk about targeted grazing as a business, but many of the concepts he applies to his low input, mixed species, brush targeting farm, meat goat operation are really beneficial for the work we do as targeted grazing operators on a commercial scale. And also just really helpful, I think, in letting people know that even big goat operators have struggled through some of the same things you have as a goat producer. And so I would really highly recommend both of these books as my final tip tonight. Okay, I'd like to just point out a couple more things. If you go to goatsonthego.com and you've found some of the things I said about being a Goats on the Go affiliate, you've seen kind of the value of that and you'd like to learn more, go to goatsonthego.com and come up here to own a business. And when you hover over that, you'll have an opportunity to select an opportunity to get more information about our affiliate program. You'll be taken to a page that looks like this, and there's just a long pile of buttons here that you can click on to get a variety of information. If you click here, we'll send you an informational flyer about our program. You can attend another live webinar like this one tonight. You can schedule just an informal phone call with no goal except to ask and have questions answered. And I'll probably be the one who talks to you on that phone call. Really laid back, no pressure, just an informational call. We have some calculators that can give you some idea of the possibilities for making money with a goat grazing business, and a list of frequently asked questions about our affiliate program. So those would be the next steps. And I always say to people, you know, all these buttons are nice and all the information we can send you in a variety of formats is nice, but just dial me up anytime. You don't have to have an appointment. You can just give me a call. You can text me at this number as well. Feel free anytime. If we don't pick up, we reply to all voicemails. So please leave a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. I want to point out one more thing. I mentioned that spot on our website where you can click, hover over Own a Business. And besides our Goats on the Go affiliate program, you'll also be given the opportunity to gather some more information about Barnyard Discoveries. Barnyard Discoveries is something we are super excited about. We are partnering with the founder and owner of Barnyard Discoveries to create a similar affiliate network as the one that we have at Goats on the Go. Barnyard Discoveries is a mobile farm exhibit with farm education as its utmost priority. So it's fun like a petting zoo, but has so much more value. And it goes from schools to care centers to community events and birthday parties, spreading a farm positive message. So if that's something you might be interested in, if you're saying, hey, this is a fun presentation, Aaron, but I don't know that Goats on the Go is for me, check out Barnyard Discoveries. I think that there's some amazing opportunity here for doing farm education in this format. And Ron Wasson at Barnyard Discoveries has created a really excellent model that will be easy for others to follow. And with that, that is my last slide for tonight. I would love to answer any questions that you have.